Wouldn't it be amazing if every time you were working on a novel, you had a step-by-step process that you could use to make sure that you have a killer opening line? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you my step-by-step process that does exactly that. What's up, guys? Dave Jacobson here, best-selling author and book publisher. And in today's video, we're going to talk all about killer opening lines. First, we're going to talk about what qualities in an opening line make that opening line great. Then I'm going to share with you my secret step-by-step process and formula for actually coming up with a killer opening line, which you can apply to any project that you're working on. So if that sounds great, guys, pull up a chair. This is going to take a little bit of time, and let's dive into the video here. So as you can see, I created this Word document here so that I can make sure that we're staying organized as we talk through this. And the first thing we want to talk about is what are some of the important features or qualities that make a great opening line. So we're going to talk about those qualities first, and I'm going to provide an example from great works of literature to help you see the point that I'm trying to make, okay? So ideally, in my opinion, a first sentence or opening line of a novel should do at least one of, or ideally many of, the things we're about to cover, okay? If you can do all of these things well, then you have an undoubtedly amazing opening line. And towards the end of this video, I'm going to share with you a strategy and a simple step-by-step process you can use to make sure you're ticking all of these boxes. All right, so the first sort of quality or feature of an opening line that will make it great is it hooks the reader, right? So you want to hook your reader. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? Well, I think this analogy came originally probably from fishing. Picture yourself fishing, right? What do you have to do to get a fish? Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to hook the fish, right? So you throw your line out there and it has to have a hook on it. If there's no hook on it, you're not going to catch any fish, right? Similarly, if your book doesn't have a hook in it, you're not going to catch any readers. So the idea of this hook in your book, right, is to put something in your manuscript that actually hooks the reader so you can reel them into continuing to read your book, right? So that's what a first opening line can do for you. It can hook your reader and draw them into the story, right? So a great first sentence hooks the reader into wanting to read more, okay? In my opinion, this is mission critical. There's a lot of people who say, you don't need a hook in your first sentence. The reality is, guys, people have attention deficit disorder in the year 2025 when this video is being recorded, right? So the earlier you can hook a reader, the better you're going to have the better chance you're going to have of actually reeling them into your story, right? So why not do it in the first line if you can? Now, a great example of this is this opening line. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed, right? This, of course, is from The Gunslinger by Stephen King. And the reason I think this is a great hook is because there's some mystery in this, right? And it makes you want to kind of find out what's going on. Who is this gunslinger? And why is he following this man in black, right? Who is the man in black? And why is he wearing black? And why is he fleeing across the desert? There's actually multiple hooks in this sentence, which is something that makes it great. Okay, so that's the first thing you can do to have an outstanding opening line. And I'm going to tell you later on, as I mentioned earlier, an exact way that you can strategically easily come up with a hook for your story. Okay, but before we get there, let's talk through the rest of these. Okay, so the next thing you can do, and the next thing that a great first sentence or opening line does, is introduce at least one main character or setting, right? Whenever we're trying to understand stories, this is just part of human nature. We want to know the who, the where, the why, right? And the what. That's kind of how our brains just understand information. So if you can give people a who or a where, that's the main character or the setting, right? Then that's going to help them to kind of picture what's going on in their mind. And it's going to help them engage with the story, right? So a great example of this is In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit, right? This is by J.R.R. Tolkien, of course. And it's the opening line from The Hobbit, which is one of my favorite all-time books. But this does both of those things, right? It introduces a main character and a setting at the same time, right? It also has a hook because when this book was published, people were asking themselves when they read this opening line, what is a hobbit, right? So it's got a hook as well. Okay, moving on to the next important feature that you can incorporate into your next opening line. A great opening line or first sentence captures the reader's attention. Okay, so guys, if you do nothing else at all of all these in this entire list, this is the most important. You have to grip the reader somehow. Okay, you got to capture their attention. An example of this was, it was a bright cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. Okay, this of course is from George Orwell's 1984. And this captures your attention because why are the clocks striking 13? Clocks aren't supposed to do that, right? We don't, especially when this is written. I'm not sure if they had many digital clocks, right? They had the kind that go around in a circle, right? So why was it how and why was it striking 13, right? So it captures your attention. Okay, moving on to the next great quality and important feature of any killer opening line, or at least some killer opening lines, is it gives the reader a sense of tone. Okay, so guys, I'm just starting this YouTube channel, but I'm going to get into tone in detail in upcoming videos. But for now, I'm assuming you know basically what tone means, right? We'll get more into the nitty gritty of that in a future video. But you want to convey tone as early as possible, right? So a good example of an opening line that does this well, in my opinion, is Miss Brooke had that kind of beauty which seems to be thrown into relief by poor dress. This is by George Eliot, Middlemarch, right? And in my opinion, this conveys tone pretty well right off the get-go, okay? So another thing you can do, guys, to make your opening line great is you can give the reader a sense of character voice, right? Your voice. If your voice can shine through and really stand out and come through in your opening line, then it can draw readers in, okay? So an example of this is, if you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born and what my lousy childhood was like and how my parents were occupied and all before they had me, and all that David Copperfield kind of meh. But I don't feel like going into it if you want to know the truth. And of course, this is from J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. That book has one of the most brilliant, character voices of all time. And it's probably what really set that book apart early on when it came out, right? So notice that J.D. Salinger is giving you that voice right out of the gate in the opening line, right? And it can draw you in. Oh, this is an interesting character. I want to learn more about this character and what's going on with them. Okay? So the next thing you can do to make your opening line great is to provide a great first sentence that introduces a main theme of your book, right? So if you can introduce a main theme of your book, that is another outstanding quality for an opening line to have. So an example of this is, happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. This is by Leo Tolstoy and is the opening line of Anna Karenina, right? So notice how this is, if you know anything about that book, right? This is introducing the theme, and that is kind of the focus of this opening line. So that's another great thing you can do. We read stories because we want an underlying message, which is what theme's all about, right? So if you can convey that you're going to do that in a book, it's a great way to hook your reader, okay? So next thing you can do, and the next thing an opening line does effectively, if it's a good one. Now remember, I'm going to teach you how to get all of these things into your opening line in just a minute. So bear with me, but I believe this is the last one we're going to go through, okay? So the last important thing that you can do to make your opening line great is to hint at the main conflict in some way, right? Now, all stories are driven by conflict. Conflict is one of the most crucial aspects of any good story. So if you can hint at that conflict early on, then you have a good opening line. Example of this is All This Happened, More or Less, by Kurt Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse-Five, right? There's a hook here because there's mystery. We want to know what happened exactly. But once we get to know more about it, we find out that what's happening is actually part of the main conflict, right? Okay, so we just covered, guys, important qualities in a great opening line. Now we're going to segue and transition into, based on that, okay, based on what we just covered, how can you use a step-by-step process for writing your opening line for your next work that actually seeks to incorporate some of these features or qualities, right? So I personally came up with a step-by-step process that is going to help you. If you follow this process, it's going to help you craft a killer opening line for your particular project, all right? So let's get into it and see exactly how this works. So the first thing you have to do, step one, is to articulate the premise or concept of your book, okay? And you can do this in 1 or 2 paragraphs. Now, if you don't have, also you're going to have to write down possible themes for your book and some of the main characters, okay? So you're going to do that in 1 to 2 paragraphs. If you don't have at least an idea for a premise or concept, and if you don't at least have some idea for a theme or some idea for your main characters, you're not ready for this step, okay? So do that first, and then once you have those ideas for your project, then you're ready to start drafting an opening line, okay? So once you've got your premise, and we're going to work through this together. I'm going to give you an example so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So once you have your premise and your concept and you've written this 1 to 2 paragraphs, which I'm going to show you how to do that in just a moment, then you're going to use that concept and premise to make a list of 3 to 5 things that are very intriguing about either your concept or your premise or your character, okay? So you're just going to make a super simple bulleted point list, and I'm going to show you what that looks like, okay? Then you're going to choose the best 1 or 2 of those, ideally choosing one that relates to your theme. Okay, so let's take a look at what this looks like in practice. So for this sample, right, I created a sample for this video of like a possible premise or concept, because again, if you don't have a premise or concept, you can't start working on your opening line. But let's say you have this, let's say this, for example, is your premise or concept, right? Premise: a 12-year-old orphan is taken in by a mysterious clockmaker who secretly repairs not just clocks, but the very fabric of time itself. When time begins to unravel, it's up to the apprentice to travel through broken hours and forgotten days to find the lost hour that will fix everything. Okay? So I would say that's a pretty interesting, if nothing else, premise or concept, right? And this is not a book I'm working on or anything. I just pulled this out of, my hat to try to provide you with a working example, okay? So let's say that's our premise. And so some of the themes on a superficial level, right? There's different definitions for theme, and I'm going to make a video about that in the future. But basically on a sort of, when I'm using the word theme here, I mean just kind of superficial themes of your story, right? Include time travel, found family, and destiny, right? So we've got our themes. We've identified our themes. We've got our one paragraph premise. And then we can also identify from this our characters, right? We've got a 12-year-old orphan. Let's just call him Johnny Little, right? You can give him, I'm just giving him that name for the purpose of this demo. And we have a clockmaker, right? The mysterious clockmaker, right? So from this premise, we're able to identify themes and characters. So this is step 1, okay? That's what you have to do, right? So, okay, step 1, example. Now that we have our premise, themes, and characters, remember that's the prerequisite to this step. Then what we want to do is list 3 to 5 things that are intriguing about your character or concept or premise, okay? So I've done that here for us, right? What are some things that are intriguing? Well, there's time travel involved. That's certainly intriguing, right? Don't overthink this, guys. Just, once you have your premise, be like, okay, what's intriguing about this to me? Well, time travel is, pretty intriguing, right? Time itself is unraveling. Okay, that's pretty intriguing, right? There's a lot of time travel stories, Back to the Future, etc., but time itself isn't usually something that has this sort of unraveling quality. So that's intriguing. Mysterious clockmaker knows how to fix it, right? So that's intriguing. There's this mysterious clockmaker who somehow knows about time travel and knows how to fix things, right, regarding time. So that's intriguing. And the main character is an orphan. That's not that intriguing, but it's kind of intriguing. So I made this list, right? So again, you've got your premise, you got your themes, and your character. Then you're just going to make a list of things that are intriguing about any of those, okay? That's step 1. Now, step 2. Choose the best intriguing thing of those you just selected and write a clever sentence. Now, this is not going to be your opening line. You're just going to write any clever sentence that highlights the intriguing thing in a way that grabs the reader's attention. We're going to turn this into an opening line, but we're moving step by step, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to choose the best of these intriguing things, okay, and write a clever sentence that highlights the intriguing thing in a way that grabs your attention, okay? So, example, yesterday, the future stopped, right? So that in of itself is could be a decent opening line because it's got some of the qualities we talked about, right? There's a hook there. There's some mystery involved that kind of grabs your attention. It's already incorporating theme, right? So it's checking some of those boxes, but we're going to take this and make it even better, okay? A lot better. So now we've done step 1 and we've done step 2, right? So now you've got this sentence, we can move on to step 3. Now, step 3 is we rewrite the clever sentence in a way that mentions one or more of your main characters and or your settings, okay? So you're just going to take this sentence right here that we just came up with, yesterday the future stopped, and you're going to tweak it, you're going to rewrite it so that it mentions one or more of your main characters and or settings, right? Which gives us this. Yesterday at exactly 1:17 p.m. So now we're getting into setting, right? Setting involves both where and when, and now we're giving the when, right? Yesterday at exactly 1:17 p.m., the future stopped, but no one in Windermere noticed but me. Okay, so now we've got a character, right? Me. So we've got a setting and we've got a character that are mentioned in the sentence, okay? So that's step 3. Now notice, these steps are designed to step by step get us these things that we're looking for, these qualities that we talked about at the beginning of the video, right? One of the qualities was introduces at least one main character or setting. So that is why step 3 forces you to incorporate those into your first sentence. Get it? Okay, so now we're going to move on to step 4. So now you're going to consider point of view. What is your book's POV? Is it in third person? If it is third person, ensure the sentence is written in the third person. If the story is in first person, ensure the sentence is written in first person, right? So, so let's say like I did the last step. I said, but me, right? So I wrote that in first person. But now we have to think about, oh wait, okay. We weren't thinking about it before, but now we have to think about what is the POV of our story? Well, let's say it's third person. Okay, well then you have to convert this to the right POV. And that's what this step is all about, right? Yesterday at exactly 1:17 p.m., the future stopped, yet no one in Windermere noticed but Johnny Little, right? So the only thing different in this step is we changed me to Johnny Little. We wrote this in third person, which is because that's what we want our story to be in, okay? So now, step 5, ask yourself, does the sentence hook the reader into wanting to read more? If not, tweak the sentence until it does hook the reader. being sure to leave the character mention and the intriguing idea intact. Right? Well, we already have an intriguing idea, so most times you can probably skip this step. But, yeah, so I just said it already does. It already hooks us, right? Why? Well, the future stopped. How did it stop, right? And why did no one notice but Johnny Little, right? Okay, so we already have our hooks, and we can move on to step 6. So step 6 is now consider tone, right? Remember, at the beginning of the video, we said another great thing that that opening lines do well, if they're great opening lines, is they convey tone. So now we have to tweak the language a little bit to make sure we're conveying tone in this step. So write down 2 or 3 words that describe the tone you are aiming for with your book. Then rewrite, tweak the sentence above to ensure it matches and makes clear your tone, right? So, example. Yesterday when the clock struck midnight, the future stopped. Yet no one in the gloomy town of Windermere noticed but Johnny Little. So the only word I changed here is the word gloomy. Okay? So obviously you can tell that the tone of this book, we're looking for something a little bit mysterious maybe. We're looking for something maybe a little bit dark, right? Maybe this story is going to be a little bit dark, have a little dark twist to it. So I added the word gloomy. That's all I did. I tweaked this a little bit to just give this a little polish by considering tone, okay? And we've incorporated tone into our story. Now you can do a lot more than that, you know. If your tone is whimsical, you can tweak your tweaks would be different, right? But just saying, for now, for the example, I used dark, and so I added the word gloomy, okay? Step 7. Now we're ready for step 7. Now consider voice. What is the voice you're aiming for with your story, right? Formal, sarcastic, witty, humorous, creepy. This should, of course, be genre appropriate. But once you understand what voice you want, you're going to rewrite the sentence to ensure the sentence matches the voice of your novel, okay? And remember, keep the POV intact. So if it's written in first person, make sure it matches your character's voice. Okay, so example. Yesterday, when the clock struck midnight, the future stopped, in case anyone cares. Yet no one in the gloomy town of Windermere noticed but me. Right? So see what we did there? We went back to first person just to show you that you can tweak this if you change your mind. And I added this little phrase here, in case anyone cares, right? So I kind of went a little J.D. Salinger on this, right? And incorporated the character's voice a little bit. Okay, so now we're ticking off another box. We're incorporating voice into our opening line, right? Now, bonus step. Consider conflict. Can you draft a sentence in a way that hints at conflict? If so, you've got a stellar opening line. So, example. Yesterday, when the clock struck midnight, my future officially ended, in case anyone cares. Yet no one in the gloomy town of Windermere noticed. Okay? But that should say, but me, right? So now we have our finished product. We've taken it through all of these steps, and now we have an opening line that ticks a lot of those boxes that we talked about at the beginning of this video. Guys, I'm going to provide a link at the bottom of this video to that you can, if you sign up for my mailing list, I will send this template to you for free. Just sign up for the mailing list, and then if you want it, right, in case you want it, or you could just follow along at home. Now, the final step here, guys, is evaluate how many of the following criteria does your opening line satisfy? Does it hook the reader? Does it introduce at least one main character? Does it capture the reader's attention? Does it give the reader a sense of tone? Does it give the reader a sense of voice? Does it introduce a main theme of the book? Does it hint at the main conflict? And the answer is yes, 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 and yes, because that's what this step-by-step process was designed to do. So finally, we've got our opening line. Yesterday, when the clock struck midnight, my future officially ended, in case anyone cares. Yet no one in the gloomy town of Windermere noticed but me. So I don't know about you guys, but I think that's a pretty darn good opening line. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's good enough to know that you've done your homework and you've got it right. Guys, if you enjoyed the content in this video, or if you got value out of it, I would greatly appreciate it if you considered liking, subscribing, maybe even sharing, and I will see you next time.